Today I have a special treat for you with a handmade wooden palette. Hello wonderful people and welcome. I'm Lana and I fell in love with watercolor about 5 to 6 years ago. It was a long journey and somehow the flow of watercolor was what felt so special to me that I just kept painting. That passion was what made me create the channel, the watercolor database, which is linked down below, and other projects. Today I'm going to share with you the most unique project I've ever started and something I'm incredibly proud of. You have to know that I come from a creative family, and while we all have rather boring jobs, we spend our leisure time with creating. My mother was the one who taught me drawing and painting. She even worked as an art teacher for a while. She's a tailor, so she loves to sew. She knits and crochets and even did wood carving and wood burning for a while when she was a teenager. She loves to try out new crafts and is very talented when it comes to creating. My sister sews too, knits and crochets. She also did draw for a while. You know me and my arts and how I love to try out new things and supplies. My father is drawn to wood and likes to build things. He made shelves, a bed, and does a lot around the house. So when my father joined me on my walks with Downtown Sundays a few months ago, we spoke about life and everything, and he told me about what he was building and I told him about art and supplies and a wooden palette I own from Agayo, which is, by the way, amazing. He was curious and I showed it to him. That's how the idea was born. He was impressed and a few days later he approached me and wanted to try and make one. It started from a few little squares for a travel palette, which is, by the way, not done yet. Then my mother's birthday approached. So what we did is we designed and made a wooden palette for my mother. She already received it, so I can show it off here. The intention was to make a palette for the use on her desk with some place for brushes. The lid is separate, so you can put it to the side if needed. There's mixing space in the lid, but the brush part can double as a small mixing space too. In the months before my mom's birthday, my father did the woodworking part. We had to get some equipment we did not have. I tried several stains, varnishes and white paint for the mixing part to check if it's 100% waterproof and would be good for a mixing space. In the end, we created what you can see here. The palette is covered in 5 layers of paint and varnish. The color comes from walnut stain. It's incredibly smooth. The palette has 15 wells to be filled with paint. For that I chose coir. I just like how coir behaves in paper and the flow. The colors are beautiful and bright, and I know that the quality of paint is just right to give to a person I love. The color selection I made is a rather conventional one, as my mother used to have very traditional palettes in the past, but I also added some modern pigments that I felt have to go in every palette. I also avoided cadmium colors because she used to have those in her old palettes, and I'm not a big fan of cadmiums. So the colors in her palette are Nickel Azure Yellow, PY 150, Hansa Yellow, PY 35, Benzimidazolone Yellow, I'm not sure if I pronounced this right, it's PY 154 in core, Transparent Pyrrole Orange, PO 71, Quinacridone Red Light, PR 207, Quinacridone Red, PV 19, Quinacridone Magenta, PR 122, Dioxazine Purple, PV 23, Prussian Blue, PB 27, Cobalt Teal, PG 50, Phthalo Green Blue Shade, PG 7, Yellow Ochre, PY 43, burnt sienna, PBR7, and burnt umber, which is PBR7 as well. By the way, the full range of Quor and many more brands are already in the Sun & Colors watercolor database. Many colors are tested for light fastness too. Quor is amongst the brands that are being tested right now. The results will be available next year, as the testing takes some time. You will find a clickable link down in the description box. I chose the colors with the intention to create a nice bright palette with good mixability, as you can see in the mixing chart I created for it. A big range of yellows, oranges, greens, blues and neutrals can be achieved by mixing only 2 of the colors, and even more of course, as you can adjust further. It's a rather simple palette to use, and I chose colors I love and I know would work well together. It was also important for me to give a set of true primaries within that range. The Hamza Yellow, Quin Red and Prussian Blue alone could cover most of the needed mixes if someone had only those available. I also wanted to give colors that can create some texture. The granulation of the ultramarine, cobalt teal and the earth colors just work very well together, as well as with the other colors in the set. I feel like the palette is versatile. Of course, this is just a starting point. If my mother wants other colors included or changed, I can do so. Every artist is very individual in what colors they like or not and what colors they choose, and palettes should represent that. Some prefer more earthy tones or moody mixes, bright colors, granulation or transparency. A palette is always just a tool and should be adjusted to the artist's needs with time. My mother did not paint in many years, but was mentioning lately that she wanted to start again, so I wanted to give her something versatile to start from. In addition, I put some Da Vinci Casaneo quilt brushes to the set, a clutch pencil and an eraser, as well as one of the Handmade cotton sketchbooks, the same one that I got for myself and liked so much. I reviewed it in my last video, which I'll link for you too. Everything I put in that gift was what I myself love to use. Supplies that make me happy to use them and that I go back over and over again. With this gift, I hope to give some of what makes me happy to my mother and hope she'll feel the same when she uses them. By giving her a full set of everything she needs, I hope to set the bar to actually start painting again low and give her motivation to put some paint on paper. I'm very thankful that my father hopped on the idea and that he was so motivated to create this gift for her too. He was very excited and we spent a lot of time musing about the palette and the setup, the materials and the tools. So in this palette shows the essence of the creativity that I come from. This is probably the most personal video I've ever made so far. And if you like that or anything else, it would be great if you left a like to help spread the video. Thank you. The motivation did not stop though. My father continues working on a few unique travel palettes, but with less time pressure. I'll share with you once they are ready, and maybe, just maybe, we'll put a few of them in the shop to share the joy of handmade wooden palettes. By the way, the varnish and paint we use is eco-friendly and not harmful to the environment. Cool, right? So, what do you think about the palette and the color choices? I would really love to know that and have some feedback. What would you adjust maybe? Because it's very important to see how other artists are thinking about these things. Also, if you like to have a nice chat with me, consider joining one of the streams on Twitch so we can nerd out about art supplies. That would be great. Have a wonderful and creative day, everyone. Make someone you love happy with what you do. I hope to see you soon. Bye!